Hey there guys, the Berg here. Welcome to the second video of the MikroTik MTCNA Routers version 7 playlist, where we will be talking a little bit more about who MikroTik is exactly, where do they come from, how do they fit into this whole networking picture, what their goals are, and how you can learn more about them online. So this is going to be a fun little video. If you find it helpful, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think about it, and let's get into the video. Alright, so a great place to start this journey of ours is just to go onto the MikroTik website. Why? Because it comes with a ton of information and gives us a lot of details about who MikroTik is, how they work, and how we can just get whatever info we need from them. So the first thing that I would do is just head onto my browser. This is just good old Firefox, and I'll go onto the MikroTik website by going www.mikrotik.com. It is very important to note that the spelling is with a K and not a C, so it's not like a microprocessor. This is MikroTik with a K. We can visit their website, and here we can see a ton of interesting information. We're immediately greeted by some news headers that just tells us what new products have come out, which is really nice to just quickly get a glance of what's happening. And one big thing that stands out to me is this latest video feed of theirs, because if you're not aware, MikroTik actually runs their own YouTube channel where they provide the community with free micro tips videos, similar to many of the videos that I create, where they just go over configuration setups and how things work. But not just these amazing micro tips that they do newsletters, podcasts, they even do fun little videos to see what people have out in the wild. So they're very active with the community. Now this makes us feel more like a colleague to colleague relationship. It's not really this corporate entity and customer, even though you are very much their customer and they will respect and treat you like a customer. They will also be very transparent with you, with what they're doing, how their business operates, and it's really, really nice to see. It's actually quite refreshing as opposed to many of the big vendors that are based in Silicon Valley. Now that's one big point I want to bring out. MikroTik is a European-based company. They're actually based in Latvia and Riga, and they make their own operating system as well as hardware. Now what does it actually mean? That means that they produce their own routers, switches, wireless access point, wireless devices that can carry big wireless data like for wireless links. They've even got weird little PoE things that can turn fiber into Ethernet. But it's so cool that they have this massive product stack, but they all run the same operating system at the heart, which is based off of the Linux kernel. Now, this is really, really awesome for us as consumers, especially if you're somebody like us, like me, that's a lot into the home labbing scene, because there's so many new things that you can learn and figure out with MikroTik, because all of the features run across the board on all of the devices. It's just that you might have some limitations to how much things your hardware can support, but they all can do the same thing. And that's such another cool point that I want to bring up. With MikroTik, when you buy the equipment, the license that comes with the equipment is perpetual. That means forever. That means you don't have to renew it 3 years down the line. With some of the other big vendors that have these weird and wacky future licensing models where sometimes it's cheaper to just buy new equipment with a new license than just to renew the license. It's actually quite silly to me, but that's where we are in the future. But MikroTik doesn't do that. They treat us and respect us, and it's really nice to see. And I think that makes one of the big points. MikroTik was made for the emerging markets. That means not necessarily it just means for the third world country or anything like that, but it means there were places where it was difficult to get the same level of connectivity options because big name vendors might just be too pricey, or it just isn't feasible to bring their equipment in. MikroTik solved that with their, I don't want to say cheaper equipment, but their alternatives it comes down to a fraction of the cost where you can deliver the same service, if not more services, anywhere. So that is such a big game changer as well. Now let's just quickly go through some of the details on the MikroTik website, things that I think that they'd like you to know. Not necessarily that it's going to be in the MTCNA exam, but it's nice to just go over these details. Things that I probably showcase is just go to the About section. Here you can read more about MikroTik, where they come from. You can see they've been operating since the mid-90s. Here it also tells you that they've created RouterOS as a software, which, if you think about it, many of the current Sense boxes like pfSense and OpenSense, or even VIOS, operates at the same type of level, where it's x86, where you can load this on any machine. That's MikroTik's beginnings as well. They had the operating system, and you could turn your laptop or computer or anything that had basically a mainframe and a CPU and an Ethernet card at least, you could turn that into a router or router. Now, down the line, I think in the early 2000s somewhere, I think it also showcases it here, 2002, MikroTik also went the route of creating their own hardware. This is where router board came in, and this is again where they also started producing their own wireless equipment and all that stuff. So they have been in the game for quite a while, which is such a nice thing to see. Another cool thing is they're not this massive corporate entity. They've only got, it says 280 employees. I might say there's a little bit more at the moment. I can't really say what their headcount is for the offices. But it's, again, not like these big tech companies where we see tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of employees. And it's so scary to see in the news where we read, hey, this big tech company has laid off 1,500 employees or 15,000 employees even. It's so nice to see that MikroTik is also, even though they feel like dealing with the colleague, they're also a tightly knit company. It's not this big corporate crazy entity where I think nobody knows each other. I actually think most of the people at MikroTik's offices know each other really well. Now, one important thing to note with MikroTik, when you buy their equipment, a lot of the times you might come to buy, but this will just redirect you to a lot of the distributors. So what is a distributor? You can just think of this as a place where these guys will order the equipment from MikroTik. They'll stock it in their own shelves or their own warehouses, and they will essentially sell it to you, the consumer, at the end of the day. They might sell it to companies, but you can find a MikroTik distributor by just going to this buy section, and you can find the closest distributor to you, see what their pricing is, compare them to other distributors, and then this will just give you a good idea of who you can buy stuff from. So you don't just need to go and buy MikroTik equipment off of Amazon or off of some eBay site, even though you could do that. That's totally fine as well. But the preferred method is just to find a trusted distributor and buy directly from them, because they will essentially get the best and latest equipment, which are running the correct factory builds that have already been tested before they were sent down to you. Other places I might go to is the hardware section, because hardware is really important. This is where we can get a look at all of the MikroTik products, and we can find things that we might want to use in our own networks. Now, if you're a home labber, if you're a enterprise, if you're a big ISP, or even a medium-sized ISP, or even a WISP, MikroTik has some or other product for you. The cool thing is you can go in here, you can look at the specific like switches, and you can even find big, massive data center type of switches like the CRS520 4XS. Look at this beast. This thing has so many 100 gigabit Ethernet ports, or not Ethernet, I shouldn't say Ethernet, these are fiber ports to be honest. But they run these big QSFP modules. As you can see, these are these fat big modules, but you'll typically see these devices be deployed in the enterprise or at a data center, and they would typically be running as spines. But besides these big switches, you can get the smaller switches, you can get home-based switches. I even have a CRS320 or 326 sitting next to me where I can plug my computers into, that I do a lot of my own testing with as well. So this is where you can find what you typically want to buy from MikroTik, and this is where you can go back to that buy section and tell the people, hey, I want to buy this MikroTik because this looks really, really interesting. This is also a great place to get more information about the product itself, because if I, again, for example, just go into this switches details, if I just scroll down, I've gone over this in a previous video as well, but it's highly important that you see and know about this. We can see more about the product specifications, so it will give you a good breakdown of what's happening with the product itself. You can see exactly what it's doing. And another thing that I like is if I go to the support section, and this is one of the coolest things that I like about seeing on MikroTik is, since they're so transparent, we get the block diagram, which tells us exactly what is happening, like with X-ray vision in the device that you want to buy. This shows you how everything is connected inside. If you wanted to like unscrew the case and you looked at the mainframe and the CPU and all of these connectors running from the the ports, the SFP ports into the CPU or into the board itself, this is kind of what you'd see, and this gives you a good indication of how everything is kind of configured. There we can see there's QSFP28 interfaces, there's 16 of them running at 100 gigabit, and then we've got 4 25 gigabit SFP28 SFP interfaces as well, and they all run into the switch chip that's running at wire speed. This means that you're going to get the most speed out of this as well. So this doesn't just get bottlenecked by the CPU, even though the CPU on this device is actually quite powerful as well. It's such a cool thing to see. Now, I don't want to specifically just talk about a switch. I want to just show you that it's so cool that you can get these details from the MikroTik website. Other things that you might see that you want to learn more about is the software tab. And the software tab is very useful for seeing whatever new change logs there might be if MikroTik makes any changes to the software. But importantly, this is where we can download new software or firmware images or such for MikroTik. Or more importantly, you could download one of the CHR images. If we just scroll down, if I come to this cloud hosted router section, if I look down here, this is where you could download one of these raw disk images and spin it up in a hypervisor or on EVE-NG or GNS3 so that you can more properly have this virtual emulated network and you can work on the equipment as if it's real equipment, because it is essentially real equipment. It is a real CHR that's able to forward frames and packets and everything just like any normal MikroTik as well. So this is great for learning, and I love that it is also for free. The only limitation is that everything runs at 1 megabit unless you buy a software license from MikroTik, which again is perpetual, and you could even move that software license to another device if this one for some reason failed. MikroTik is so open about that stuff. Other nice things that you can get on here is you can download Winbox, and Winbox is basically MikroTik's awesome management GUI/tool. Now, this is debatable. Some people like Winbox, other people hate Winbox, and I'll show you more in depth what Winbox looks like in another upcoming video when we actually use Winbox to connect to a device. But you should know that most MikroTik management will happen through this Winbox application, and this is where you can come and download it. Another cool thing is you can see the documentation for more information. So if I just open up the documentation in another tab, we can see MikroTik documentation. And this is where I come for a lot of things that I want to figure out with MikroTik, because this will give you a great indication of everything. Everything that MikroTik has put out, there should be some form of documentation for it. If you want to figure something out, like the getting started, they'll walk you through the whole process of actually connecting to your MikroTik, changing stuff, securing your router. It's so awesome that they just make these steps available. But you might miss that if you're not aware of it, because your first instinct might not go onto the MikroTik website or to go to the documentation side of the website to learn more. So this is just another thing that you should know or learn about. So after Winbox, we can also just one more big thing that I want to show you is regarding the training. Now in the training section, this is where we can find in-person training. Now, I did mention in the previous video, if you want to get certified with MikroTik, you need to visit a trainer in person. Unfortunately, this training, even though it's the same level, I'd say, that you'd be getting, you still need to go to a trainer in person to write the exam, because that is one of MikroTik's requirements at this very moment. It might change in the future, but currently, this is how it is. And this is why it's difficult for people to sometimes find training, because you need to firstly find your region. So let's say if I was in South Africa, I'd go to Africa, and you might find your location. So I might drill down to South Africa specifically. And here I can see training is typically only done in Cape Town, Durban, and Johannesburg, which is great if you live in those areas or if you're close by. But what if you're in one of the smaller towns that might be hundreds of kilometers away? It makes it a little bit harder for those types of people. So this is one thing that I want to maybe stress if somebody from MikroTik watches these videos that I make as well. Keep that in mind, guys. There's a lot of times that people need to travel from far away, and since you started your solutions for the emerging markets, keep that in mind that there are also those emerging towns and such inside these countries where people might not just be able to get to these bigger centers, or even the training might not even be available in their country, and they have to go to a neighboring country in order to get certified, which is actually such a difficult thing. But I digress. This is just one of those steps. If you want to find the trainer, this is where you can come. You can go to the organizer's website, make contact with them, schedule a training session, and then you can get formally certified as well. I'm just coming back to the main page because I think that actually establishes a very good baseline of who MikroTik is. You should now be aware that they are a networking vendor. They do provide many different type of solutions for many different markets. It's not just for big ISPs or enterprises or home users, but everyone really. Their products are the same across the board thanks to using RouterOS, which runs off of the Linux kernel, or it's based off of the Linux kernel. And everything is perpetual, and it just kind of works, and it was made for us the people, so to speak. So MikroTik is really the people's device, and I really love covering them and working with their devices. Even though I don't work with them in my professional role so much anymore, I still use MikroTik in my home network, and I think it's something that is really enables a lot of people to get into the network engineering or even connectivity fields in general. So MikroTik, keep doing what you're doing. And if you've enjoyed the video, thanks for watching. And I'll catch you guys in the next video where we will actually start doing some actual hands-on things by logging into a MikroTik device and showing you how Winbox works and all that wonderful stuff. But this will be where I end off this video. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon. Bye.